and welcome to Vidura Uvacca podcast for one of the most important podcasts on one of my favorite topics. Today we have with us Advocate Navroop Singh ji, who is a third generation intellectual property attorney, a practicing advocate before Delhi High Court and Supreme Court of India. He also comes from a celebrated legacy of the family who has pioneered the IP law practice in India. He has been in practice for 14 years and has dealt with innumerable matters related to trademarks, copyrights, industrial design, and patents. But most importantly, he is a geopolitical analyst, avid reader and researcher with a keen interest on international affairs, foreign policy, diplomacy, and conflicts across the globe. He has also published 3 books, along with his co-authors, Mr. Naveen Tomar and Ms. Himja Parekh. The names of the books are The New Global Order, which was published in 2016 and has been endorsed by ex-Raw Chief Mr. Vikram Sood himself. The Triumvirate has also written an amazing book on the complexities of Korean Peninsula, which goes by the name of Korean Peninsula, a pawn on geopolitical chessboard. The book was published in 2018. Now, his latest release is The Great Reset. It has published recently. The book provides for the origins, the conspiracy, funding, and the aftermath of this global COVID pandemic on the world. So, before going on to the podcast, I would request the listeners to kindly go through these books, which will help you to break many illusions about this pandemic and the world we live in. So, welcome, Navroop sir.
Thank you, Mrinal. Thank you so much.
Sir, it's been an honor that you had graced this channel. So, let's begin our podcast. So, for the starters, I would like to know about this terrible Russo-Ukraine war, which Mr. Vladimir Putin initiated in the early months of year 2022. I mean this year, and now, but unfortunately, due to in this age of information, the details are very shoddy. As to who is winning this war or who is losing it, and there are also murmurs that Russia has now occupied the eastern part of the Ukraine. Also, would like to know as to who all are, funding this war, directly, indirectly, and what were the real reasons, out of the media glare, and how this war is taking a toll on the US-led global order and the humanity at large.
Sure. See, Russia-Ukraine war, as per my understanding and what I have written, is an epoch-making movement in the global geopolitics. And the reason being, I tell you very simply, because this conflict is not today's. This has been raging on since 2014. That was when, Viktor Yanukovych was deposed by the Euromaidan protest. And ultimately, you had Vladimir, that was during the Sochi Olympics, Sochi Winter Games. And then Vladimir Putin chose to was taken by surprise by the Euromaidan deposition. And then it led to Russia invading Crimea and annexing Crimea, holding a referendum. And then there was a rebel sponsored in eastern Ukraine by Russia, which led to a ceasefire a year later in the Minsk. And then the Minsk agreement was based on Normandy format, that's 2:2. So it's a long history of conflict. This is the modern history, but even if you go earlier on, during the age of Stalin, they had huge purges of Ukrainians, which Stalin did. The famine of Ukraine was very famous, where the Soviet leadership starved Ukraine, and people literally chose to die in field and eat each other out. That was the kind of horrific massacres which were committed in Ukraine. So which is why the eastern Ukraine, which was the grain bowl of Ukraine, suffered the most during those purges. And which is why it was during the Stalinist era that Stalin asked the Russians to populate the eastern part of Ukraine. So when today we say that Eastern Ukraine is Russian oriented, or you have more Russian speaking population, so that is the history about it. So that is how it came. Obviously, they both have the common Slavic roots, be it the Ukrainian and the
Right.
and the Russians. So there's a history to it, and then the modern concept, like for Russia, the arguments were, like demilitarization of Ukraine, denazification of Ukraine, and it started and expansion of NATO, which was the biggest reason given by Vladimir Putin in his famous speech on 24th of February. I
Right.
remember
Right.
that.
Yeah.
And this was just after Beijing, again after Beijing Winter Games. And so that's another funny coincidence. Last time it was Sochi Winter Games, this time it was a Beijing Winter Games.
Beijing Winter Games.
Yeah.
I know. This is kind of a deliberate thing, I think, which Putin did. After these Winter Olympics, he just went for this invasion.
And you know what the best part is, that like just a month back, the Vladimir Putin and President Xi Jinping of China signed a no holds bar friendship treaty in Beijing. So it gives you a lot of sense where the global order is shifting. That you had that one of the two biggest superpowers, I won't say superpowers, the two big powers in the world, Russia and China, entering into an agreement, and a month later, the invasion of Ukraine begins. So that's a very very weird coincidence, be it the Sochi or be it this. But coming to the point, what you talked about, also like the initial see, you have to understand one thing. Eastern Ukraine has always been pro-Russian, since almost more than a century now, right? So there was always a sympathy factor towards the Russian motherland kind of feeling and loyalty. The Russian language unites them, the traditions, the culture over there. However, if you go out of the Donbass area, which has two major provinces, that is Donetsk and Luhansk, right? Two provinces. So if you go outside that area, it's basically Western Ukraine, and it's a different altogether landscape. There, the people do not like the Russian presence. And I still remember when the Russians invaded Ukraine, I was like, yeah, till Donbass it is fine. But what comes after Donbass, right?
Right.
Because they will face huge resistance over there. And 1.5 months later, it was exactly the same as it transpired. Russian army went till Kyiv, suffered losses, and finally they chose to retreat back to Donbass.
Yeah.
And like consolidate in the east and the south.
And
so basically, and the motive was what? The motive was to create a land route from Russian border to Crimea. Across the Donetsk province to Mariupol, which is why Mariupol was an essential obstruction in the Russian, the plans, which is not that much of Odessa, but Russian plans as such in interlinking. So now coming to Russia's justification, whether it was there, denazification, yes, there is Azov battalion, which has some.
Right.
Which has Nazi insignia and propaganda. We all know that, right?
Yeah, they still have those SS emblem which Nazis used to wear, as an emblem on the clothes, basically.
Yeah. So that demilitarization, I do not know, because Ukraine is far more militarized than anything else. President Biden has virtually poured in $10 billion of arms. What kind of demilitarization is this happening? It's a funny joke, actually. Now, coming to the third, which is a very big issue, whether it was the NATO expansion. Now, if you look at the talks between there was a national security archive communication between the Soviet secretary and Mr. Gorbachev, and the Americans the American Secretary of State, and where it is orally recorded in understanding that NATO will not expand eastwards, sorry, and what do you say? It will respect Russia's sphere of influence over there. Even though those republics get independent, but it will respect. But tell me what happened after till almost from 1970-80 onwards till 2020, virtually they have reached they have got all the Baltic states of Lithuania, Estonia. They are part of it. In the Balkans also they have reached, right? Turkey is also part. Turkey is also part of NATO. So you have virtually reached. Now when you reach Ukraine, when you try to, there was always a talk whether Ukraine will join Turkey or not, whether Ukraine will join Turkey or not. NATO will join.
Ukraine will join NATO
or not. I stand correct. Sorry. Yeah. So when this, see, for our practical purposes, even Sir Henry, Henry Kissinger said that of having Ukraine in NATO was always a very bad idea.
Right. The same has been suggested by I forgot the name, Mr. Whose video became very popular when in the initial days of the invasion, where he was saying that it is a very bad idea where the West is pushing Ukraine to gain the membership of NATO, and which will ultimately wreck Ukraine. Nothing will happen to the West or the Russia, but the Ukraine will be the real loser. Yeah, the John Marshimian, the guy who basically warned the West about this ultimate invasion which Russia may do if the West tinkers on this whole NATO issue with the Ukraine.
Exactly. Just hold on a second, please.
Yeah, no problems.
My voice is clear now?
Yeah, your voice is clear. So no problem.
Yeah, fine, thanks. Okay, fine. So now the thing is that so now the question arises, we have actually reaching almost a kind of a stalemate because Ukrainians are unable to defend the eastern borderline, right?
Right.
They are suffering huge losses in Donbass area. Zelensky was virtually pleading, like to Americans, supply us big arms, supply us missiles, supply us this, supply us that. But unfortunately, the Russians, the pro-Russian borderline of Donetsk province or in Luhansk, which is part of Donbass, and then Mariupol and Crimea, it will be very difficult for Ukrainian government to take it back from Russia. So ultimately, it is the Europeans who will have to sit across the table, talk to Vladimir Putin, because they are the most impacted ones out of this,
right,
and ultimately come to a negotiating table and draw a ceasefire. So the first thing is you have to draw a ceasefire where you stop the hostilities and military movement, and then you negotiate from there onward what to do. To me, Vladimir Putin seems to be in I won't say an advantage, or probably he has an advantage of a certain economic kind, which is making his invasion a real success. And I'll come to that in the next question if you have it, like that way, how the economic aspect of this war. Yeah.
Right.
So yeah. So this is about the military aspect of the war. And NATO expansion is obviously, we all know. So that is, but NATO expansion is not the only thing because NATO was already bordered. Tell me something. Now today, after Vladimir Putin did this invasion, Finland and Sweden have decided to join NATO. So is that a strategic mistake? Is that a strategic win for Vladimir Putin or a strategic blunder for Vladimir Putin?
It's a pure blunder.
Germany has decided to rearm itself, and we know when Germany rearms, what happens, right? Right. Really, you really want to push Europe on that path once again, where a united Germany decides to rearm itself.
And that too, it's a united. I mean, it's not divided, it's united.
Yeah, which is why European researchers have always preferred a divided Germany than over a united Germany. I should not say this, but that's the history.
Right. Absolutely.
So, there are strategic blunders which did Kremlin in. They did not have proper intelligence, and it was leaking it. And CIA was constantly warning for 3 months: invasion is going to happen this date, next week. It was like as if they knew what was going to happen. So it begs the question: was the Kremlin infiltrated? That they had such clear information from inside what was going to happen.
Right.
Which is why Vladimir Putin happened to fire 7 of his generals. Right. So now these are the flaws of the Vladimir Putin invasion. Going up till Kiev, military intelligence, underestimating the Ukrainian resistance in the western part of it. These are the flaws. Now coming to the success which he's having now, because he's deployed a different kind of a warfare now. It is economic warfare.
And
that probably
grave. Which is
more
graver. I have just one question on this particular war which has been initiated by Putin. Maybe know who all are the direct or indirect kind of funders or who all are funding this war, because economy because it was COVID. And then later on, when world was kind of recovering from it after 2 years, and suddenly we hear this, that Russia is invading Ukraine at such a critical time, such a critical juncture. It makes me very uncomfortable to think about it. I mean, who in their sane minds would try to start a war when the whole globe is kind of wants to recover from this terrible aftermath of this coronavirus pandemic, sir?
You see, when certain things, certain events happen, when the globe, it's like when things have to happen for things to come. There's a very famous Latin Greek or a Latin word, order ad chao, which means order comes through chaos. Right.
Right.
So only when the chaos is created can you have an order. The Vladimir Putin's latest interview was that he compared himself to Tsar Peter I and wanted to establish the Russian Empire, which is the Greater Russia or the Novo Russia. That's perfectly fine. Everyone has a dream. We also have dreamed of creating a Akhand Bharat.
Absolutely.
China also wishes to rule the world. America wants to dominate the whole world. So every country wants to have its own empire. Why not? Right?
Why not? Yeah.
People who criticize Russia for it, I want to ask, today in India, we might also ultimately want to have a Akhand Bharat from Atak to Katak.
Absolutely, and we should have this dream. I totally support that.
Because a civilization which becomes a pacifist one and does not try to expand its boundary ultimately dies its own death.
Right.
So a kingdom has to focus. Now coming to the funding, I was looking at a graphic yesterday. Someone posted it.
Sure.
Russia's Kremlin's war chest is estimated to be around 840 million euro it is spending every day.
Oh my God, this is huge amount.
Huge amount. But it is funded by fossil fuel exports, which sum up to 90 million euro fossil fuel exports per day. Out of that, from February 24th till June 3rd, who has bought the biggest fossil fuel? Now, read out, there's a huge commentary in Western intellectia that India and China are funding the war of
Funding the
Russia.
war.
That kind of nonsense. It's time we set the truth to light.
Right.
Right. So, okay, Germany is buying 12.1 billion euro of oil and 60% gas from Russia.
Oh my goodness. And they were talking about sanctioning Russia.
Yeah, listen, Italy is buying $7.8 billion, Netherlands 7.8, Poland 4.4, France 4.3, Belgium 2.6, rest of EU 18, Turkey 6.7. If you combine all this together, more than 50% of Russia's oil revenue are coming from Europe. Europe is the one which is actually funding this war of Russia against Ukraine. Now you tell me, what kind of dichotomy is this?
True. And I came across one article wherein Swiss banks are also kind of funding this war. Can you just come on this?
I will.
Yeah.
So first, I'll also say China is only taking $12.6 billion. That's it. Right, of crude oil. India only $3.4 billion. But you just imagine Germany 12, India 3, and they're shouting on India. Why take oil? Care anyway, leave it.
Yeah.
So now, if you talk about, we also read the news that companies in France, companies in Italy, companies in Germany and Switzerland are actually, allowing the Russians to bypass the sanction to produce more weapons. What kind of strategy is this? Right? And then coming to your point, Switzerland is actually buying up Russian gold. Right? And this reminds me of a very famous tale in World War II, which I've documented in our first book, The New Global Order. Yeah. The book talks about that the directors, the Nazi Germany's elite, obviously not Hitler one, but the other one, the corporations, IG Farben and all these companies.
Yeah.
And the British directors was sitting at the high table at Bank of International Settlements in Basel and Switzerland and were trading gold while the armies were fighting hundreds of miles away.
My goodness.
That is the kind they traded gold, they did not care, and ultimately the very Nazi reach, when I mean Nazi reach, when the Nazi elite, the scientific elite, was made to escape through the Vatican rat lines established by the Vatican through the Red Cross with the help of OSS, the former CIA, and MI6 of British. So the Nazi elite never got destroyed. It simply vanished and amalgamated into America and South America.
Oh my goodness.
So this is the kind of what history is all about, and it's all documented. It's not me. Even Gerald Posner has written about it.
Right, right.
He's written a fabulous book on Vatican on this.
So church also played a very key role in this war.
Oh yes,
in the World War II, and most probably may also be playing their hands in this war too, I guess.
Church wrote letters to Hitler seeking some neutrality kind of thing, and then they wrote to Soviets as well later on. So they play a very different kind of a role. Like Vatican Bank. Less said the opposite, less said the better about them.
Okay. So going forward, as you dealt with the funding of this war, now coming on to the disruption which this war is creating on a global scale, what kind of chaos are we going to witness in the global economy? Because I in fact saw an interview of Jamie Dimon, who is the CEO of JP Morgan, saying that a hurricane is coming. So what is your reading into this aspect of the disruption of this war?
Excellent point. See, I'll tell you, this is what I've documented in my book, The Great Reset.
Yeah.
The last two chapters are like a geopolitical roller coaster, a thriller virtually. Right?
Yeah, right, absolutely.
So because the reset just cannot be COVID. It has to be, whether it trade wars, Cold Wars, Russian invasion of Ukraine, the big tech, Orwellian system. So there are many facets to it. Now, coming to what you said about the economic impact. See, we have to understand one thing over here. I read about, there was one guy called Zoltan, okay, from Credit Suisse, right, who wrote his paper, his thesis, which I have quoted in my book as well. And he explains the concept very well of commodities war, which I'll explain to your readers to your listeners in a very simplified manner.
Yeah.
Like Russia is one of the largest producers of oil, coal, palladium, diamond, and all other fertilizers, potash, right? So it controls and also 30% wheat of the world, right?
Yeah, true.
Yeah, true. So and Ukraine controls 10% of the wheat. So you have 40% of the world wheat under the Russian control now, and how the world, which is why Vladimir Putin has initiated an economic war, apart from stopping oil and gas supply to Europe, right? That's already happening.
Yeah.
So now coming to commodities war, see what is happening. You have a very variance. The normal oil, the Brent crude, was selling at 120, 130.
Right.
The Russian crude was selling at 70, 60, 80. Right? At discounted price.
Right.
Same for Russian wheat, same for Russian gas. So what you're having two levels of pricing in commodities.
Right.
Okay.
Right.
One is the Russian commodities, one is the non-Russian commodities. Non-Russian commodities shot up. The Russian commodities, went at a discounted rate. Now this creates a disruption in commodity market, right?
Right.
So now when you create a disruption, there'll be an artificial hike of inflation. And this is partly due to the sanctions imposed by the West, right? So now what happens when the inflation goes up? There's a disruption. Who can solve this disruption? Who can correct the imbalance in commodities supply in the market, right? Obviously, the Western banks cannot do it because they are the ones who are driving this. The Federal Reserve, the European Central Bank, they are the ones who have they've imposed sanctions and they've imposed.
They're sanctioning hell out of Russia actually.
So the cost is going up.
Right.
Now, the only power in the world which has capacity to bail out Russia, to set up to bring the balance back, it is China, People's Bank of China, right?
Right.
People's Bank of China can print more yuan, right, to buy Russian commodities.
Right, sir. Right.
Or they can sell US treasuries and buy Russian commodities. Now they won't sell the US treasury because they will not want to antagonize USA. And so they are more likely to print more yuan and go for buying Russian commodities. Now that creates first time an alternate currency in the world backed by commodities. A yuan backed by commodities like gold, coal, and oil, which was only to be done in dollars till date.
Yeah, true, sir. Absolutely.
True.
It makes sense. Yeah, it makes sense.
It makes sense. So now you understand where this is going. This is going. You have a euro yuan now, right? A
Yeah.
commodities backed euro yuan rivaling euro dollar. I'm not saying US dollar, the euro dollar, right?
Euro dollar.
The euro dollar, right?
Right.
You have which is the reserve for all the commodities.
Right.
So
sir.
now, in either way, whether they print more, they sell US treasuries, the West is going to face the inflation, the yields will go up by the central banks. And this is what Jordan's theory was. We are in for a shitstorm over. It's virtually a reset. It's an
True.
economic reset, because you are creating a new currency, or a kind of a semi-reserve currency, quasi-reserve currency, and that to a Chinese currency. You are benefiting your own. You end up benefiting your own enemy, your own adversary, who wishes to challenge you.
Right, sir.
And those Chinese are very smart. They are trying to play the Americans and saying, okay, we will not buy this coal from China, Russia. We will not supply arms to Russia. But thoda sa oil le liya, thoda sa coal le liya, thoda sa wheat le liya. See, because and the Chinese also, and the Americans also do not want to, offend the Chinese, because they control the supply lines.
True,
sir. Global manufacturing.
Yeah.
The zero COVID lockdowns in Shanghai have virtually, made life hell for the world.
Absolutely, sir.
For 1 month, all containers were stuck outside the coast of Shanghai, waiting for the port to open.
And I pity the Chinese more, Chinese citizens, in fact. And the point is, when you have this whole, blockade, or not blockade, I mean, there's no containers being stationed at the ports. It is crazy to see that the leader of such a big country really don't care about it. I mean, it's shocking to me somehow.
The Chinese never care. The CCP never cares for its people. It's as simple as that. The Great Leap Forward and all these things, what we have learned about the gruesome past of the Chinese history, did they ever care about the people? They don't. They welded their COVID people inside their houses to leave them to die. That was the kind of treatment the CCP does.
True, sir. In fact, I saw a video where on the staircase of a particular building, there were actually barbed wires, laid down all over the stairs so that people cannot come out of the building. This is so crazy. We just can't imagine this happening in our country.
Yeah, exactly. Now they have integrated this with a social credit system and a QR code pass. You are green, you can, if your pass is green, you can travel anywhere. If your pass is amber, you have to stay in, you have to inform the authorities. If you violate, it goes to red. And finally, the party police will come, pick you up and throw you into a
quarantine center.
Actually, those are not quarantine centers, they are concentration camps. That would be better to say, actually, right?
True, sir. A true Orwellian society in making.
Yeah. So, the Russian invasion of Ukraine and the commodity crisis, the war which I have talked about. Now, this is ultimately going to cause kind of a huge kind of inflation. Like we are seeing what is happening in Europe, the crazy inflation which is now swinging into USA as well.
Right.
Yesterday, we heard that Russia is almost going to close down taps of gas to Germany. And the German government has declared an emergency and directing the European, countries to actually save gas for the winters, because they don't know how the winters will go over there, right?
My goodness.
So now they have signed gas agreements with Israel and Egypt. They have signed oil agreements with Qatar and UAE. Obviously, there is America, which is going to, and the latest part, the biggest advocate of the climate change has now returned back to having coal-fired plants once again, so that they can have some gas for the winters, right? So now this winter is going to be even worse for the global economy, because when Europe goes into a deep inflation, high inflation, and deep recession, the world economy will enter a stage called stagflation. Now, stagflation is where there is stagnant growth. The growth is contracting. Okay? inflation is high, and this ultimately leads to a recession. It will be a mild recession. I wouldn't say it won't be a full-fledged global blowout, but certain countries will face huge recessionary trends. Europe, to a certain extent, America, and across the world will face it. Right.
So, with respect to this inflation coming up and the subsequent recession, are we the ill effects of it will be majority on Europe and the Western, you can say Western civilization per se, starting from Canada, USA, and then South America, and then moving towards Europe, or will it be a total global sort of thing?
See, this will be this is the global disruption. See, what Russia is doing. Russia is not allowing the commodities from Ukraine to flow across the Black Sea to go across the world, which means countries like the Middle East, countries like countries in Africa, which are like Horns of Africa, is already facing a drought. They have no wheat. They'll starve. They'll be that kind of situation is being created. Thankfully, India and China have their own wheat, so we have the largest countries, on the eastern side, who are self-sufficient in food supplies. But yet, even our oils, like sunflower oil and all, and the biggest impact to India has been its defense. Because now, what happens to the arms and spares from Ukraine? Ukraine used to have a lot of industrial plants which used to supply spares for Russian weapons platform.
Oh
no way! Now, where do we get that? How do we diversify? Can we have that much of dependence on Russian arms? These are calls which the Ministry of Defense will have to take. So Europeans will suffer the most, no doubt. Oil and gas disruption, high inflation, a kind of a recession in the European mainland, and the effects will be felt even in America when the midterm comes and the Biden administration faces the midterms in America in November 2022.
yeah.
But the whole world is going to be impacted, because ultimately, if US and Europe gets impacted, the whole world gets impacted, because they are the ones who run this financial system post World War II.
Oh, right? Sir, Bretton Woods system.
Yes, Bretton Woods. See, all the Bretton Woods summit. The World Bank was born out of it. The IMF was born out of it. And if you read my Great Reset, this is the part of Pax-Americana empire, which the corporate elite created to serve America's interest. America's interest means, in turn, the corporation's interest. In corporation, you mean who are the shareholders. In shareholder, they are those families. It's when you lift the corporate veil, you find who are the elite.
True, sir. True. Okay. So we know that a kind of a shitstorm is going to soon come to the world because of this war. Now, coming on to a debate, which is currently going on post this war, is whether we are entering into a phase where it will be a multipolar global order, or it will be again bipolar world order. So, point to say is that our Minister of External Affairs, Mr. Subramaniam Jaishankar, he is a vociferous supporter for this multipolar world order. He propounds this theory that no, boss, there is this end of a unipolar, bipolar, one country or two nations having this kind of a hold on the world. Now they are going to be different poles vying for the space, in the world. So, what is your reading onto this? Personally, I think that we are again moving to a bipolar world order. And point is, are you convinced with Mr. Jaishankar on his theory?
I'm not.
Okay.
I would humbly disagree, with him over there. But I understand why he says so and what the policy is. And I'll explain that, why he says so and why I politely disagree with him over here.
Yeah, sure, sir, sure.
Yeah. Why he says so? Because multipolarity serves India's interests. Like if we have a decently strong enough Russia who's able to withstand American sanctions, right, with the Western sanctions, and emerge stronger out of it, it's the most beneficial part of India, because then there is a middle power which is neither totally against us like China,
Yeah.
or totally for, So we have a huge middle power on the Asian continent, which can balance between India and China, right?
Right.
It also given India's hydrocarbon needs, by be it oil, be it gas, be it diamonds, minerals, be it fertilizers, be it even what you say, your defense, like our major platform S-400, Sukhoi. So all these big platforms are BrahMos. They are all with joint Russian collaboration. It is a fact that Russian arms may be a bit old, but so far they are the ones who have shared their technology with us, joint ventures to a
Right.
certain extent.
Yes.
What technology, the Americans have provided heavy lifters, like P-8 Boeing Orions, they have provided Apache, they have provided Chinooks, they have provided M777 howitzers. But again, they haven't provided any cutting-edge technology.
Right.
Right. So
which is more important, I guess.
The technology is a real deal. The Russians, I don't think the Russians have provided cutting-edge technology. Certainly, they have not. Like FGFA, their fifth-generation fighter FGFA, they were asking a bomb for us, which is why we haven't gone for it. Right? There are certain deals which are signed by, like Kamau helicopter deal, which has been put in abeyance, because we still don't know. We are yet to figure out how we bypass these sanctions. Because there is intense economic pressure, there is intense pressure on the government of India from the Western lobbies, be it Europe and America. And Mr. Jaishankar has been very vociferously batting for the India's interest. It's perfectly fine. But now I come to my own analysis. In the longer geopolitics, the temporary, let's say in a year or 2 or 3 years, the world may look multipolar to you. But it is transitioning towards bipolarity.
Okay, so it's a transition period which we are going to see.
Yes, exactly. This multipolarity is a transition. Because what is going to happen? The kind of disruption you have done on the European mainland. See, we have to understand the Duchy of Moscow, which was the core of the Russian Empire, right?
Yeah, right.
In the beginning. That has always been Eurocentric. You have suddenly disconnected Europe, European mainland from Russia. So now the Russian bear metaphorically has to travel all the way to Siberia towards warm water in the east. Right? Right? And who is the power which has the capacity to buy Russian commodities? I told you in the earlier, it is China.
It is China.
Who is the power who can supply Russia arms and spares and kind of technology which Russia wants? Because
China.
Now you have said, because those military spares will not come from Europe, they will not come from America, they will come from China, right? And let's not forget, China is an $18 trillion economy. Russia is only a $2.5 trillion economy. There's a huge gap.
True, sir.
Definitely. And with China now, Russia cementing its alliance with China in a very ironclad manner. It begs I beg a question to all our strategic experts and foreign affairs experts. If, for God forbid, India was to enter into another kind of a conflict with China in 1962, how do you think Russia will play?
Right. They didn't do anything in that war.
Yeah. In 1962, the Russians stayed ambivalent. Rather, the intelligence files reveal that they quietly backed China, right?
Right.
Being a communist brother over India. And they also stopped the deliveries of MiG planes, which India desperately wanted at that time. And it was ultimately President Kennedy who had to come to India's rescue. The American forces had to supply the shoes, the warm clothing, even the rifles to fight on the Himalayan peaks.
Right, sir. And in this in the recent Galwan and Doklam issue, I guess Russia was totally silent, if I remember correctly. They
Russia did say for an amicable solution. Again,
yeah
they
again
did not. They again, like they backed India's strategic interest, but they could not openly call out China the way UK, America, and France were doing at the
right
UN,
right.
because they are heavily dependent upon them now.
True, sir. And
So
somehow the so-called Russian fans in India are not getting this.
no, it's okay. See, we all go. I don't blame them. I actually don't blame them. It's not their fault. Like you have to understand this. The way the world is transitioning. It's transitioning very. Indian bureaucracy is always very slow to catch up. We were, like we were always very slow to catch up in IT revolution. We were slow to catch up in tech revolution. We are slow, but when we start, then we capture very fast. That's
right.
that is an inherent trait we have. So I think ultimately, not now, maybe 2024, by 2025, the trend will be absolutely clear. We are heading towards a Cold War 2.0, where you will, on the one side, you will have a US-led Western alliance. On the other side, you will have China-led alliance with Russia as a tributary state or a junior partner in that alliance. Today, you go and talk to anyone in the world, any think tank in the world, they know this is coming. I have talked to certain Indian foreign service bureaucrats in private.
Okay,
right?
Yeah, that's interesting.
I had former bureaucrats.
Of
not
course.
the former ones, right?
And
they say your reading is right. It's heading towards Cold War 2.0. And unfortunately, like Cold War 1, where we could stay ambivalent and stay NAM because Russia was a friend, right?
Right.
It was not an adversary. But China is an adversary.
Yeah.
But if given a choice between a US-led bloc or a China-led bloc, whom will you pick up?
No, it makes sense. I'll pick up US-led bloc.
You will be forced to. The circumstances will take you there, where that choice will have to be made. You don't have an option over here. The multipolarity looks good for intellectual debates as of now because it's a transitionary period. The moment we exit, the moment those alliances are solidified, you will see the whole picture will be clear.
Right, sir. So, sir, I have a question here. Let me play a bit of devil's advocate here. So, what are the reasons you think that India has to go towards US-led Western bloc in the coming bipolar order?
Yeah, the first and the biggest thing are economic integration. The biggest part. Today, America is the largest trading partner of India at over $115 billion, even surpassing China.
Oh, this is bomb. I guess I used to think that China is the largest trading partner.
They have overtaken China, right? Our systems, our companies, our IT sector is totally, linked with what happens in New York. The money, you pick up any Indian big conglomerate or corporation, you look at the shareholdings.
Right. I have checked out a couple of them.
Right. Where does the funding come from? Right. If it is coming from, Cayman Island, it is coming from British Virgin Island, it is coming from Mauritius, under whose supervision are these jurisdictions working? Whose financial system are these jurisdictions using? SWIFT, America.
Right, sir. Right. True.
And moreover, this was the economic part, the kind of economic intake, the kind of money which is being poured into India by the Western corporation. All said and done, Pfizer is opening the biggest plant of Asia in Chennai.
Oh, this I didn't know.
Yes. Despite its vaccine being getting refused, it is pouring that money into India because they know this is the next land of opportunity. right?
Right, sir.
So when you are economically so we like in the pandemic we look to कि CDC क्या कह रहा है, डॉक्टर फाउची क्या कह रहे हैं,
फौजी का कह रहे हैं, yeah.
उसके हिसाब से हमारी पॉलिसी डिसाइड होती थी. यूके क्या कह रहा है, यूएसए क्या कह रहा है, ठीक है. सिमिलरली आज फेडरल रिजर्व क्या कर रहा है, उसके बाद आरबीआई डिसाइड करता है.
राइट सर, एब्सोल्युटली. फेडरल रिजर्व वहां कुछ करता है, यहाँ पे 2-3 दिन बाद यहाँ पे फिर आता है कुछ.
यहाँ पे so we follow up. So because the financial system, global financial system, which is the Pax-Americana, which has a corporation, which has the World Bank, which has the IMF, it is run by America. It is not run by China or Russia. Even the Chinese are following the same system. So you can't live outside the system. One is that. Then you look at what is happening on the Indian borders.
Right, sir. It's absolute.
Has it been sorted out? Has Galwan has Depsang been sorted out? No. The Chinese fortifications are even building on Pangong. They are building a huge bridge, military bridge to connect the north and the south bank, and that's on their side of LAC. Right? We consider our territory, but yes. The kind of fortifications they have done in Aksai-Chin area, it's going to be, like the earlier the balance used to be in our favor, but now it's even Stevens if we go to a war. Right, and if and today you have deployed M777 howitzers, the guns, वो कहाँ से आई हैं? वो अमेरिका से आई हैं. आपका जो इंडियन आर्मी का जो नाइटवेयर जो थर्मल क्लोथिंग है वो भी वहां से आया है. उसके लिए भी अमेरिका से कॉन्ट्रैक्ट हुआ था. The American Boeings are assisting you detect the Chinese submarines in Indian Ocean near Andamans.
Yeah, they are.
Right?
Yes.
Even in Doklam, you had what you say, the American encryption, the American satellites provide you encrypted communications with the PLA, which led to the signing of Comcasa Military Foundation Pact. So now India has signed a similar pact with Vietnam, and Vietnam we know is a pure. I don't know whether I'm right, sir. You can correct me. I consider Vietnam as a pure vassal of USA. Now, tell me something. Vietnam gave the biggest humanitarian disaster to America in its history. Right? Yeah, true, sir. Yeah, right. And yet today they are signing defense pacts with America to fend off against China. There has to be something very inextricably wrong in a psyche of a company that a country 30 years back invaded you, did all kind of nonsense with you, and 40 years down the lane you're friends with him because a bigger problem is there on our neighbor now. Is there on our neighbor now? Right? True, sir. True. So India, I would say, so the Russian, pro-Russian lobby in India needs to understand this part. India is going with US is not going to go against Russia. If India is aligning with US, it is particularly against China because we need that support, we need that firepower. Rather, I would say a different thing. It is not us who needs the Americans. The Americans need us. If India showed in Galwan that it can give a fight to the mighty Chinese PLA, right? That which I call the terracotta army, right? But American strategy without India, Indo-Pacific is zero. Oh, true. It won't start. The only nuclear power in the region which has the capability to defeat or challenge China economically and otherwise is India. So India's position is like, is a very central focal point of the whole thing which is going to emerge in the next 20 years in this. And we need a nationalist, we need a very, very sound government at the center who can actually leverage this position. Absolutely. And get the best deals for the Indian public, for its interest.
True, sir. Now coming to India, I have a very small point or a small question on this. Like Indian political system. I mean, as we know, it's very chaotic. Our democracy is very chaotic, and while working in this sort of democracy, where your institutions are not that strong, or you can say where there is no kind of consensus on different institutions, or you can say different political parties, it becomes very difficult to achieve certain goals which any nation has to do for the sake of going further. Now, how do you read onto it? The current. So what I see is that BJP being a dominant party across the states, and they are kind of salvaging their power in different states, like what we are seeing in Maharashtra. So, what is your reading onto it? Will BJP remain dominant in coming years, or there may be a rise of another party in these years?
See,
just a small point, sir. Just a small point, a brief note.
Yes, I'll keep it very brief.
Yeah.
See, a chaotic democracy is far better than Orwellian dictatorship.
Right, sir. That is true.
Right. I do not want to be dispatched. There's a very famous saying that if you go in Red Square and you stand outside the Kremlin and say democracy, the police will dispatch you to Siberia. Right.
Yeah.
And if you ask for human rights in China, then you will be sent into concentration camps. China is the only country in 21st century which still has concentration camps like Lagoy and Lajoy, by the way.
Okay. Oh, okay. Right? Interesting.
I didn't know that. This is So they still have that. That's the only they term it as re-education centers.
Yes, I've heard these terms. Yeah.
Re-education camp, but usme kya hota, we all know it, right?
Okay. Right.
So a chaotic democracy is far, far better than an Orwellian dictatorship. Now, coming to the brief point, I see BJP being dominant player at least till 2030.
Okay.
At least, till 2030, because I see Narendra Modi coming back to power with a decent and a good majority. Right? In 2024, because frankly there is no challenge to him, right?
No challenge.
There's no I don't want to name political figure, but there's no credible opposition challenge. There's no credible opposition narrative. There's no alliance. By doing street anarchy, you cannot overthrow a government. That's certainly not going to happen.
Right? Right.
It has to happen. The change in India, if anyone wants it in the opposition, has to be brought through ballot, not on streets. Right?
Yeah.
And so BJP is going to remain dominant. Even after 2030, the BJP is going to remain dominant, because why I say till 2030, once Narendra Modi leaves, demits office, right?
Yeah.
By the end of the next term or the middle of the next term, whenever people may speculate, who takes over?
Yeah, that would be crucial.
That will be crucial, because that transition needs to happen very smoothly. Because if there is a gap, say even of 2-3 years of someone else stepping in, okay, till Mr. Yogi Adityanath, who's supposed to be the heir apparent to the chair, right, steps in, then what happens? You give a window of opportunity for all kind of khichdi opposition alliances to come back to power.
Right.
Right. So I see my little bit of my fear is what happens in 2029, 2030 when we go for election, and not 2024 per se.
That is true. When Narendra Modi will be totally out of picture, he'll be around 75 years of age, most probably, and
because you need a man of his charisma, of his oratory, to convince people. Are the deputy or the second in command, third in command, fourth in command, whoever the RSS may decide ultimately, right?
The
BJP and the RSS, the Sangh Parivar decides. Will that person is competent, or will they directly call Yogi Adityanath, because Yogi Adityanath is only into his second term only now? Right. So will it be too early for him? What happens? We don't know, but let's see how it goes.
Okay. So moving on to the next part, I'll basically ask two questions here, sir. as you said that, when what I've also read a lot, that when there is a bipolar world order, conflict is going to happen. As you said, that we are transitioning slowly into a Cold War 2.0 between China and USA. Now, what timeline do you expect for coming of Cold War II and the ultimate Great War, which may or may not happen? Again, I'm hesitating a bit going towards that, but still, so whether will this Cold War 2.0 transition into a Great War, the way it happened in World War One, World War Two, and of course, wars has been our history. It is humanity's history, right? And do you think that it will be more chaotic than the wars earlier? Also, what kind of new global order post this Great War we may move on to?
Perfect. See, when we talk of this Cold War, like in my last chapter, after I finish the Cold War, I move on to the Great Awakening part, where I urge people to be awake and, see what is happening around you and understand.
Yeah.
Here I talk about, there are two systems. One institutionalized corporate-backed, elite-backed system of the United States. The other system which is arising is the Chinese, which is Pax-Sinica. Pax-Americana versus Pax-Sinica. Okay. Now the Chinese are here to avenge their century of humiliation. Right? They want to avenge when those imperialist powers of France, Britain, and America humiliated them, raided Beijing, destroyed the Summer Palace, stole their artifacts, and asked the Manchu Empire at that time, which was the Qing dynasty who was from Manchuria, to sign humiliating treaties.
Right.
Post-Opium War. Post-Opium Wars. And that was one time, which is why the Chinese don't like Indians, for the very fact because our Indian elite at that time, local elite, okay, very well-known people, by the way, even today. Right? So they were part of the opium trade for the British East India Company. So they say that the Indians were part and abettors. Indian traders were the one who led who led those opium cats to be from indigo, that opium grown in Bihar and Bengal. Right. So those were traded to China. They also say that even for the British, it was the Indian elite and Indian men who acted as sepoys at that time during those opium wars. So they detest India, that you are one kind of a lackey of an imperial power. When they see India go towards the United States again, they say you're committing the same mistake again.
Same mistake.
Right? Again.
But the question we should ask is, boss, what you are doing to gain our trust? You are invading our borders. You are kind of trying to influence some part of our polity. You are totally acting against us in United States. So how can we kind of
the Chinese are the biggest funders of synthetic narco drugs in Northeast today. Can you believe that? Synthetic drugs? They are the biggest funders of synthetic drugs in Northeast today, the biggest funder of arms. They are the ones who have captured your area, and I won't say captured, who have ingressed in your area in Depsang, in Hot Spring Gogra area, and they are constantly doing fingering. Now they have even also, refused to lift a finger on a famous Pakistani terrorist. Recently. I'm remembering the name. Some Abdul Rahman or something was there. They refused to, just like Masood Azhar, they refused to, allow him to be sanctioned. So the Chinese are using Pakistan as a proxy. They use groups. They have educational. They have fronts in Indian intellectuals, the leftist intellectuals, who are part of their ecosystem. There are newspapers in India who run full-page ads for CCP, right? So you have those kind of, you have a Chinese interference, and to educate, to sensitize your listeners. I would only say, look at who funded the rise of CCP.
Right, sir. Right. You have enumerated in your book called Book 2.
Yes,
First book.
The first book. The State Department, Alger Hiss, General Marshall, they were the ones who wanted a Chinese nationalist out and CCP in. What kind of they were the ones who the World Bank actually gave the funding to China to modernize itself. Boeing provided the engines to PLA, which were used for ultimately reverse engineered and used for ICBMs. Can you imagine that? You are yourself funding your own adversary. Who does that? Mike Pillsbury's books of 100-year marathon very beautifully documents this.
Oh, very interesting. I'll take it as a recommendation to read, sir.
Yes, and Mike Pillsbury was the advisor to President Trump on China.
Oh, and that's the reason why Trump was so confident on taking on China during his term.
Exactly, because he knew what was going on. He knew, Donald Trump knew that if we do not confront China, the American power will go away.
Right, sir. Okay. It's a bit too much, to take me.
So we have this kind of, global positioning happening of bipolarity. And when I talk about the Great War, the Chinese aim to win this war without firing a bullet, but that is not how it is going to transpire. Sadly, right. Let's say the American empire is on decline. That doesn't mean it has lost its dominance. It is still very dominant. Yeah. The world we see, the world we talk, the internet we use, the financial system we use is all backed by America.
Absolutely.
Today the first thing what we do is do Google. Who's Google?
US.
Right? Today you want to send me, you communicate with someone, your WhatsApp call. What is WhatsApp?
Again, a US. Absolutely, yes. Sir. They define the world culture.
Yeah, sure. You have an Android. What is an Android? Again, Google. You have an Apple. Again, what is an Apple? That is US. So whom are you going to? It's very difficult to get out of the spider's web. But yes, the Chinese are building. What they are building? They are building their own tech system. They have their own internet. They have their own app ecosystem. They have insulated their economy or their population to the Western effects. Third, they are building. Yuan is now part of SDR. They have AIB, Asian Infrastructure Bank, which is now headquartered in Shanghai, considered to be a rival of World Bank in funding the Obor or Silk Route project, through which China wishes to dominate by trade. Right. Then they are moving towards a high tech, because China understands the role of technology very well. So they are made in China 2025. They want to have the best artificial, the kind of semiconductors, artificial intelligence. When you come to AI and adoption of AI, China unfortunately is far ahead of America.
Oh, that is interesting. They are ahead of America.
But American corporations have been very slow in adopting it. They are catching up fast. American ecosystem is very robust for innovation because you have a lot of capital investment over there from corporations, from philanthropic organizations, like you have Bill and Melinda Gates, Rockefeller, Carnegie Foundations, all these top 3 or 4 organizations which fund.
George Soros too.
Yeah, Open Society Foundation. Yeah. So ultimately, this will lead to a kinetic military conflict, right? And that timeline I see somewhere in the middle 2030s. 2030s,
okay. So you are talking about a decade.
We have a decade left.
We have a decade left. Yeah.
We have a decade left. That's it. So after a decade, we will be on the cusp of a great war. And that great war will bring huge amount of destruction to the world. Economics followed by military. And it will change the global. So it will change the global order, and that is the Great Reset, which I have talked about.
Yeah, right. So in your book, in fact, Klaus Schwab, if I'm getting his name right,
Yes.
The chief of World Economic
WEF.
Forum, WEF, which happens in Davos. In fact, he has also written a book called The Great Reset.
Their reset is different. Their reset is how they want to imagine the world. My reset is I tell you how you are being gamed.
Yeah.
How the world population has been gamed. Right?
Right, sir, right.
How humanity, if it does not resist now, it will end up in a much darker era than what we see today.
Though they won't feel that they are living in a darker era.
They won't feel. They won't feel because that is the part which I would want to discuss, as well, which is the mass formation psychosis or psychological warfare, and how that is also, and then come on to the Great Reset.
Right, sir. So, sir, I have again a very, very small question. Again, I'm an Indian, so I always want my country to be secure and to be strong. So, what kind of role do you think India can play onto this, and how it can, respond to this ultimate changes which are going to happen?
So, we have talked about the next great war, and you asked me about what going to be, how India is going to play a pivotal role in this.
Right, sir.
Yeah. So the thing is that India is going to play a very critical role in the shaping of the current geopolitical situation in years and decades ahead. Why? Because when it comes to China, we have our own. India is probably India's biggest advantage that it is a civilizational state. It is just not another ragtag country which is a union of India, as what Rahul Gandhi suggests. We are not that kind of a state. We are a civilizational state, right? So we have our own ethos, we have our own culture, we have a lot to give to this world. Be it spirituality, be it alternate medicine, be it human resource. There are so much for the world to learn from Indian culture, as what I think so. But on a geopolitical scale, India will play a pivotal role when it comes to balancing and dealing the crisis humanistically. Like during the COVID crisis, it was India which, along with South Africa, pioneered the demand for a TRIPS waiver for COVID-19 vaccines and therapeutics, right? Similarly, it was India who stood up and asked for exemptions in agriculture trade for food security at WTO. Our minister Piyush Goyal did a fabulous job over there at WTO to get those agreements done with the WTO, and India's points were all incorporated and taken on record. This by itself is a very big achievement. So India's role in global economy, global trade, because if we say we want India is fully vaccinated, but but as a concern, because concern for the whole global economy or the global population, be it in Africa, be it the Middle East, be it the Southeast Asia, because our policy is to the welfare of the world as a whole. Those are our shastras, right? So caring for the poor, the downtrodden, who are left out of the system, right?
Right, sir.
So
right.
So with that philosophy, we have made some wonderful achievements in past few months and past few years. Vaccine Maitri was a big success, right? Vaccine Maitri was a success, and then you have the biggest agreements on COVID-19, the vaccines and drugs and fisheries and even agriculture sector at WTO.
True, sir. So that is true.
And when it comes to military power, at that time, India also played a very critical play. Because India, there will be a host of countries who might not want to be officially aligned to the United States. Yet they will be willing to take help of India.
Right,
Because
sir.
we can be a very good arbiter in the whole region,
In the whole region. Yeah.
arbiter of disputes. Because like an Indian mentality is kind of of a very good negotiators.
Hmm.
History is testament to it, right? Right,
True, sir, true.
right. So that way India is going to play a very critical role. Also, when you come to diversification of supply chains, see, the world is now has realized one thing, that too much of China's dominance in global supply chain is damaging for the world, right?
Yeah.
So, be it the semiconductor supply chains, Foxconn factories, Indian industries, right? Be it the APIs, the generic pharma, now building the pharmaceutical companies' basic elements, all that is now being shifted and translocated from China to Vietnam to India. So we are all, and also India is a democracy where you have a lot of big, high, successful local corporations. You have entrepreneurs. You have a highly skilled workforce, very fluent in English, and you also have a lot of entrepreneurial skills in Indians who want to do something, right?
Right, sir.
So,
Absolutely.
so economically, militarily, in a soft power way, we are the best located country to give a world a more humanistic point of view. The West will deal about corporations, China will deal about the interest. Who will take the middle ground?
Yeah, someone has to be there to basically, call for some kind of census.
Census, like the way during the COVID, how the Western pharma giants played.
Yeah.
Someone had to speak up. Someone had to speak up. Say, boss, we need to care for those Africans as well.
Yeah.
They are also a part of the 7 billion people across the world.
True, sir. And we did that. We spoke about it. The way the shamelessness which was shown by the Western vaccine suppliers was horrendous, total horrendous. And
countries like Canada hoarded 9 times the vaccines of the population. Can you imagine? What was that? I mean, you could have donated, and then when certain vaccines started giving side effects, like dump कर दो, Africa में डाल दो, India में डाल दो. क्या मतलब is the Western superiority their own elite, the first class people, and we are the second class people?
In fact,
that kind of discrimination is built into their systems.
True, sir. True, and I think that won't go
unchallenged now.
Yeah, unchallenged. Yeah, I mean, China is challenging them, but again, China is the same imperialistic power which I think they are fighting.
Exactly. India is not seeking to impose imperialism on the world. India is calling for a rightly and fairly balanced world order.
Right.
Where interest of every country is taken into account, yet as well we must serve the humanity at large.
True, sir. True. Absolutely. I totally agree to that. That India is going to play such critical role. But again, coming on to the real world, the way things function in reality, do you think India is going to achieve that if we don't have that killer instinct in us to go for a kill, to secure our national interest, to expand our borders? What do you think about that?
This government brought a lot of reforms. Okay.
Yeah.
Farmers bill, take an example, right?
Yeah.
To modernize agriculture. But what fate it met, we all saw.
Yes.
What happened, we all saw, right?
Yeah.
So the problem is that every time the Indian government or the Indian elite decides to do something revolutionary, which can transform it into from a $3.5 trillion economy to a $5 or even a $10 trillion economy, there will be actors in play who will make you feel as if India is burning. There is chaos. There is nothing happening over here. And they are useful idiots. There are sock puppets in India, right? Who will act. and there are embassies inside India who fund all kind of this crap. Our biggest adversary and our so-called friend, both of them, the East or the West, do not want a kind of a stable, growing, secure India, because India has the capability to show the mirror, to show humanistic kind of an approach, a fair-minded approach, which can lead to a lot of disruption, which they do not want. Which is why you will see at every step chaos will be manufactured. I will name those powers. Those names, the biggest adversarial power to us is China. It will not want India to progress economically. Then there is America. They do not want India to become another China.
Right, absolutely.
Because in India, unlike China, where CCP can control people very well, it's very difficult to control the people.
Yeah, true.
It's very difficult.
Very difficult.
Because we are a chaotic democracy. Right? So the pitfalls of democracy, the beautiful part is that as a democracy, we have functioned despite our drawbacks and done exceptionally well. At the same time, the pitfalls are the same very democracy can be weaponized against us.
Yeah, and that is what my worry lies, that how are we going to secure ourselves, this country, from these powers? I mean, do you think any light shining on us in coming times?
See, I'll tell you something. This government is doing some very good work. Yeah. One, it has built its own financial architecture like RuPay card.
True, sir. True.
Right? Challenging MasterCard and Visa, right?
Visa, yeah.
Again, American corporate. Yeah. UPI. UPI volumes have skyrocketed.
True, sir. It's a revolutionary.
It's a revolutionary.
Yeah.
So in fintech you are doing, and then I've heard they're coming out with their own e-commerce platform, ONDC. Like Nandan Nilekani was saying. So when you have ONDC happening, you have our own fintech happening, you're asking data to be stored locally to the American corporations. You know? So India is this government, especially this government, I will not say the previous government, this government has taken some revolutionary steps to secure India's interest. Now we have also made amendments to IT Act where we hold the tech giants liable for what is happening and what is being said on social media, right? You can't escape that liability. So you can't escape that liability. So, but at the same time, we must develop our own, I repeat, our own financial architecture, our own tech system, because this very social media and WhatsApp and Twitter can be used as a propaganda material to fuel dissonance in India and create mass disturbances and riots.
True, sir. True. Absolutely.
Yeah. So funding of Indian startup systems, the technical aspect, the financial systems, because that is the core of it. Firewalling the Indian democracy from external or foreign interference.
Okay, great, sir. So moving on to our last point, and which I think is more critical, as you have written this amazing book called The Great Reset. So though it starts from the where you write about the origins of the coronavirus, how it's a pure joint venture between USA and China, how the funding was from USA and the experiment was laid down by China. Can you provide us a brief snapshot of your book and what will be the elements of the Great Reset or the New World Order, which is going to come after when this whole thing will reach onto its conclusion in next decades or next 1 or 2 decades?
Yes. Now, I still remember when Donald Trump was elected on 20th of January 2017. I wrote on my Twitter timeline that the elites have called for, when he said America first, I said, "Ho gaya beta garak." Okay, like that. So I said, because that means the unwinding of current international order has begun. Okay. Now, the trade wars have always been disruptionary. The American hegemony, the world through, has been maintained by underwriting trade deficits. The moment any president tries to remove those trade deficits, the American hegemony will collapse. What Donald Trump was doing was only fast-tracking the demise of American power at a supersonic speed, right? Which is what I explain in the introduction part of my book, how trade wars happen. And in the history of the world, there have been many trade wars, and how they have led to military wars, ultimately. Right?
Yeah.
But every reset, the first element was the trade wars. But every reset requires a catalytic kind of a point, a Pearl Harbor kind of an event. That Pearl Harbor event was COVID-19. The kind of disruption it brought in 2020, when everything was locked down, supply chain was stopped, the whole world for 3 months was virtually, people were in house arrest. So that is a journey which I document, how the virus started from Wuhan. What was the research done? Who funded? From EcoHealth Alliance of Peter Daszak to Ralph S. Barrick of University of North Carolina, right?
Right.
Who were the funders? NIH, NIAID, right?
NIAID, yeah.
Right. So you had the American institutions, funding the gain of function research on coronaviruses, bad coronaviruses in the Wuhan lab. So and then you want to spice up the virus, and then you had the very lady Xi Jinping, who says, that this virus is far more dangerous than HIV.
Yeah, the famous Batwoman of China.
Yes, because it destroys your immune system, immune T cell, which is your immune response. It dysregulates it throws the whole system into, like crazy. It kills your T cells as well. So, it's like a Frankenstein monster you have unleashed on the world. For what? If you read the American Congress report, and if you read them, which I have documented in my book, it says that there was a catastrophic accident which happened in the Wuhan lab. The lab was closed for 15 days, 10-15 days for sanitization in Wuhan. There was no cell phone activity detected over there at that time by satellites. It started spread from military games. It spread to US and Europe early November.
Yeah.
Yes, exactly. The Chinese told us in January, but it was spreading in October, November 2019, right? The World Military Game, the athletes report how empty it was, how Wuhan was so empty, and many of the athletes fell ill.
Yeah.
So I document this, and then I document the gain of function research, how people from India, a doctor in Bengal, how people across the world gathered together. They went through the scientific databases. They were microbiologists, they were data scientists who cracked this up, who started to blow the punch holes in the theory of the scientific establishment that this came from a lab. There were conversations between eminent scientists, eminent vaccinologists, and eminent scientific elite in America, Europe. And while in private, they were discussing, this virus came from lab. This looks potentially engineered, especially the furin cleavage site. But in public, no, we cannot offend the Chinese. So let us say this was a natural crossover from bats to bat. It came from the seafood market.
They don't want to offend the Chinese, or they are protecting the Chinese?
They are protecting themselves. They are protecting themselves. Joint venture. The kind of funding which has gone to EcoHealth Alliance in China for bat coronaviruses, it will blow your minds off.
Yeah, right, absolutely, sir. Because ultimately, if China would have agreed to that, of course they would be disclosing from where the funding is coming, and it's from US.
Absolutely. So when to you expect America to hold China accountable? Never.
No.
Never. That's not going to happen. The gene editing technology was given by America to China, through which they started creating the chimeric viruses. So then I move on to biological warfare. You know what biological warfare is all about. And then I find, and this is part one. Part two, I talk about how the pandemic unfolded. From what happened in Wuhan. People don't know what happened in Wuhan. I had to dig through a lot of Chinese articles, translate them, and see what exactly went inside. Right? And then how it happened in Europe, from Spain, Barcelona, Italy. They suffered the most. March 2020. Then it went to UK. Then it went to New York. And then finally, what happened in India? How we battled COVID in the first waves, our lockdowns, our management of the hospitals, and then obviously the horrendous Delta wave.
Oh yeah, the second wave was devastating.
Was devastating. It was a killer. And how our policy floundered a bit in preparing for that. That's a fact. We have to admit that. But then from there on, we recovered stupendously on base of an excellent vaccination campaign. To vaccinate 180 crore Indians within a span of 1 year is a momentous achievement.
True, sir. True, sir. Even the elite Bill Gates, commended this government for vaccination.
We were able to overcome the Omicron wave because we were vaccinated very well. So now, then the part 3 I discuss about Omicron, long COVID. That COVID is not mild. How can a virus be mild? Is it a cup of coffee from cappuccino coffee from CCD? How can a virus be mild? This virus triggers the spike protein in the virus, triggers vascular disease, it triggers lungs problem, it triggers heart inflammation, it triggers so many other problems. People have, it triggers autoimmune diseases, it reduces your biological age.
Oh yeah.
And you think this is a mild cup of tea. I know people who are after the Omicron suffering from rheumatic arthritis. Absolutely fit people. For what? Because it triggers an autoimmune disease. That autoimmune disease does not have any cure.
Sure.
So you are creating a generation of patients for pharma industry. And that is when I come to big pharma. The next chapter is big pharma, where I talk about, how the pharmaceutical industry with the public health authorities gamed. How it was funded and how all these things happened. And then I move on to the impact of the pandemic, where I talk about economics, where I talk about how economies were devastated and affected. India suffered minus 57% contraction in industries, minus 23% GDP contraction, the worst on record. And how yet India bounced back so well. What were the social welfare scheme which launched by the government of India, be it providing free rations, be it putting huge capex in infrastructure, building highways, which meant that India starts to regain momentum. After that massive, we almost lost 12 crore jobs in March, and between March and May 2020, 2 months, the CMI data says. I'm not counting the second wave.
Yeah.
Just imagine that. The kind of disruption which it caused was huge. And then the biggest aspect, then I cover all sectors, hospitality, tourism, education sector, virtual learning, e-learning. How studies have said that kids who are doing virtual learning are not having they are not developing their full personality. Because because schooling is just not about education. It is about your extracurricular activities.
Right. Interacting with different kids and your teachers, everything. Absolutely, sir.
Correct.
The cognitive abilities are becoming
absolutely. The studies which say that kids born in the pandemic do not have lesser cognitive ability than before pandemic. I've quoted them. Then the biggest thing is the social impact, which is the depression, the anxiety, the fear, the kind of suicide which we've had, the mental the mental epidemic of the pandemic, the impact of the pandemic has been the biggest one, the least studied. And I have made an attempt to, discuss that. I've discussed how people in India have felt, have suffered. People are suffering. किसी को ये चिंता है कि अगली रोटी कहाँ से आएगी? Where will we find our life from? कहीं मेरे किसी चाहने वाले को ना हो जाए, किसी family member को COVID ना हो जाए. The fear of death, the fear of disease, the losing a job during a pandemic, financial insecurity, being locked out into a socially atomized manner in your homes with no one to interact. It was something we are not. Man is a social animal.
Right, sir. Right. Absolutely true.
Right?
Absolutely.
So, and then so this is how the book goes on. Then we discuss about elements of the Great Reset and the Great Awakening. Now, coming to the final part of it, where you talked about the global order and things.
Yeah.
I explained to the reader that the most critical part in this whole reset is how the population is being psychologically manipulated into accepting the changes. From vaccine mandates, which have no, from mask mandates, which has no, from crazy lockdowns, which have had no effect. As per the study of John Hopkins, it had no effect.
No effect.
On bottom. No effect. Rather, it caused more disruption to economy and destroyed people's lives.
True.
Right?
True.
Vaccines, I discussed about how the vaccines have also have side effects, and the people are not reporting. The moment you utter the side effect, you will be banned.
You will be banned by the same social media.
The same social media, the same tech giant, the same public health authority will go after you. Right? Because they're experimental drugs which have been formulated in 2 years' time. I'm not saying vaccines are bad. Please vaccinate yourself. But at least there has to be informed disclosure to public.
Right.
You must tell that in case you take this vaccine, you are likely to have myocarditis, pericarditis, you might likely to have autoimmune diseases, thrombic cytopenia, and so Guillain-Barré syndrome, Bell's palsy. So there are all kinds of disorders which can happen in your body.
And it has happened, sir. It has happened. I've seen the examples of it.
Yes, same here. I have seen people suffer. I know people who have got COVID 3 times, for COVID twice, and got the vaccines also twice, suffering from transverse myelitis, an autoimmune disease of the back. Of the back. And then so we talk about all this stuff. And then I tell what are the psychological tools, mass formation psychosis, which Professor Matthias Desmet of Ghent University has explained how you have psychologically wargamed the population. The British use a nudge unit in the Prime Minister's office to nudge people to put scary scary kind of hoardings.
Posters and hoardings.
Posters that unvaccinated are the problem. No, unvaccinated are not the problem. The CDC says that there is no data to say. The CDC says that the viral load between vaccinated and unvaccinated is the same. Then what? What? Our own Supreme Court says the government of India has no data.
There's no data about it.
To discriminate between two sides. So we should not believe the establishment narrative blindly. We need to use our cognitive faculties. We need to understand what is happening, which is why I also discuss about the new order which is coming, where artificial intelligence and central bank digital currencies will play a very big role. The Central Bank of England says we can use the digital currency, CBDCs, to target a person and say, you will only use this money for this particular purpose. Like China is about to integrate that with EU1, right? Just imagine you go to 10 years down the lane, the physical cash is finished, you have a digital currency controlled by the central bank, your health ID is linked with the government of India. Well, I mean, not the respective government, right?
Yeah.
You go to a shopping arcade, you want to pop in a soda and some condiments. And the moment you go to a payment center and say transaction declined, Why? Because as per your health ID, you have diabetes, you cannot have this. You want to go toward that kind of system where citizens are evaluated based on their QR codes, their health IDs? Are we mere QR codes roaming around over here and probably get ourselves implanted with chips in future?
No, absolutely not.
And then Bill Gates also, and then we had the very infamous experiment of climate lockdown in Delhi last year. Pollution होगा तो pollution होगा तो पूरा शहर बंद कर दो. क्यों? किस लिए? Is that a solution?
No.
So which is why I tell the people to wake up. Do not be psychologically nudged, be the nudge unit, be it through elections, be it through mass formation. Please do not fall victim to the establishment. You try to logically question every policy. Emotionally react करेंगे तो आप उस पर फंसेंगे. So, it's kind of a hypnotic trance, mass hypnosis. Professor Matthias Desmet's videos are there on the website, and he recently come out with a book called The Psychology of Totalitarianism, where he's discussed in detail. There are French scholars, Gustavo Le Bon, who have written about it. So that is my plea to everyone, that, please do not take this lightly. What is happening around us? Behind this chaos, a new system, CBDCs, artificial intelligence, QR codes, you are being sent towards a kind of a society where George Orwell's prophecy of 1984 will come true.
True, sir. And in the end, what I've seen is that, more humans try to create a perfect society, the more totalitarian it becomes.
Exactly. And Professor Matthias Desmet's theory is so wonderful. He said it can apply to political sphere, it can apply to economics, but just read it. It's wonderful. My book explains it very well. The second last chapter, the listeners can buy that book on Amazon and they can read it for themselves, how this is going to unfold.
Yeah, sure, sir. I'm going to post the link, Amazon link and Google Books links too, of your books. And in fact, I myself, reading it, I'm now, to this part of biological warfare, which was initiated by the USA as well after China, basically. Yeah.
So then I would also urge your readers to understand. This virus, coronavirus, never vanishes. Once it is there in circulation, it will never go. It is like you are at the level, you can never develop herd immunity against coronavirus. This is not me. These are scientists from Europe. What is common cold? A beta coronavirus. A beta coronavirus cannot develop, you keep catching cold every 6 months, 8 months.
Yeah, true.
Yeah. So it's the same with coronavirus. The moment your immunity goes down, you will catch COVID again. But COVID will not kill you. I repeat, COVID is not going to kill you. What happens post-COVID infection is going to impact your immune health. Right? And like when I got infected first time, I had a stomach problem, stomach inflammation, which lasted 6 months. Next time, this February, I had COVID. I had a problem with my problem in my knee, and it impacted my kidneys. Right? Yeah. So it will leave an impact. I know someone in my close friend circle who developed rheumatic arthritis after Omicron. I thought Omicron was mild. Mild viruses also cause such kind of thing. So we need to understand the concept. The prevention is the best cure. Please save your elderlies. Please save your kids. And when there is a surge, mask yourself, because there is no way. Every time you get infected, your immune system degrades further. At one point of time, your immune system will just stop resisting. Because it is trained in such a way. It is killing those T cells. This is not me. Professor C. Zhengli in a study on 8th of March 2022, which I have quoted in my book.
Right, sir.
And also, one more thing. because your immunity is suppressed, it has suffered a huge hit. All kinds of diseases will erupt. Monkeypox, dengue, RSV, polio. These viruses which were earlier, dormant, they will rise again. So you will see more heart problems. You will see more severe cases of dengue coming up. Because your immune system has actually taken a huge hit. Why? Because this is a designer spike protein.
Right, sir. Right.
It was created in the lab.
Yeah, it was created in the lab, and it was created to basically kill it somewhere in China.
China.
Yeah. And unfortunately, somehow
this was a vaccine trial which was created for the bats.
To
cure them, and humans became unintended. Victim of it. It's sad. It's actually sad what has happened.
I don't know. There may be a bigger destiny playing a great role on these things, sir.
And this is why I wanted to write this book. In January 2013 or 2022, when I wanted to write this book, I said, at least there should be someone in this fucking world, I'm sorry to use that language, right? to document what has happened, what research was done, who funded it.
True,
millions who have died, they deserve an answer.
True. And by the way, to all my listeners, I want to tell you that Sir's book is garnering more sales in USA than in India. So look at the impact of it. And I request you all. Yes, sir. Continue. You may continue.
Yeah, and famous scientists like Kirsten Anderson happened to block me out of no rhyme or reason when I haven't interacted, because I exposed the truth. Because in the private, he was saying it is engineered. In public, he authors a paper. No, it is not engineered. Because he was funded by XYZ. I will not say that.
True, sir. True. Absolutely.
So I really hope humanity wakes up. And my objective behind this book was to, 20 years, 30 years down the lane, 50 years down the lane, 100 years down the lane, when we are not there, I'm gone, we all are gone. When the humanity looks back what happened in that pandemic, there should be at least a reference point in history.
Right, sir.
Right. There must be someone who tries to throw some light on the truth. Like Vajpayee ji said, agar andhera gana hai to diya jalana kahan mana hai.
Absolutely, right? Sir. Absolutely. And you have done your part, sir. You have done your part, and we are thankful for it. Many followers, who follow you on Twitter, your discussion, your thoughts, your views, I think it awakens people. They see world differently. They make, in fact, the future plans they make it very consciously as to why they are doing it, how the real world functions, how we as an individual, have to realize that how we do not become a part of this evil games, which are being played around us by the elite, by the global elite.
Which is why I said, you forget about the Cold War, you forget about Russia, Ukraine, you go a step higher. See the joint venture on COVID. See what is coming from behind the scene, the CBDC, the Orwellian setup, the QR code. You will realize you are sending humanity into a dark tunnel.
Right, sir. Right. That is true. So, guys, thank you so much. And thank you so much, sir, that you took out time for this episode and graced our podcast channel. Folks, I do hope you would have able to dispel many myths and delusions you had about how the world functions and what we need to do to prepare about what to come in near future. I do request you all to please buy the books written by Sir and his great partners, Mr. Naveen Tomar and Ms. Simja Parekh. I'm posting details and the links of all the books in the description of this episode. And also do follow Navroop Sir on Twitter. The link to his account will also be posted. So I do hope that you will keep coming to discuss more important topics on our channel, sir.
Actually, it was my pleasure. It was wonderful having this chat. And I will only say this much to you, that we should have regular sessions of this kind of thing, and probably make it once a month or twice a month at least, right?
Oh,
and
that's great, sir.
Yeah. So like once a month, let's start from once a month, where you can have a wrap of the events once a month: political, geopolitical,
sure,
legal,
yeah.
cultural. So
I'm okay with astrology too. I'm okay with astrology, sir.
I'm also game for that. It's okay. It's perfectly fine with me. So I think it will be beneficial for your listeners as well if you can have that. And it would absolutely my pleasure to have come onto your channel and discuss it threadbare. It was an opportunity, like I was waiting for this kind of an opportunity where I could connect to reader listeners and tell them what is exactly going on around us.
True, sir. So, and really, thank you for your kind words, sir. Really humbled by those words. And absolutely, I have many topics in my mind. So yes, we are going to reconnect again. That's a good news for our listeners too, that they may get more pearls of wisdom from you, sir. So guys, thank you for participating in this episode. See you for the next round of podcast at Vidura Uvacca. Subscribe to it on Spotify and Google Podcast. Namaste and peace.
Thank you so much. Thank you, everyone.